Some love stories don't begin with fireworks or certainty. They begin quietly. Two names on a screen, a shared joke, a familiar profile picture that keeps appearing over the years. At first, there is no urgency, no pressure, just the comfort of knowing someone exists out there, living a parallel life. That was how it started for me. Before the heartbreak, before the silences, before the lessons I never asked for, but deeply needed, there was simply curiosity and hope, and the belief that if two people cared enough, things would somehow work themselves out. I didn't know then that this story wouldn't be about how love survives against all odds. I didn't know it would instead become a story about patience, emotional limits, and learning when to choose peace over persistence. This is not a story about blame. It is a story about timing, distance, and to people who tried nevinly, imperfectly, but sincerely in their own ways. My name is Kagiso, a 32-year-old man based in Palapye, Botswana. I met Naledi, now 26, while she was living in Maun. For a long time, we were nothing more than casual Facebook friends. We liked each other's posts, occasionally commented, and exchanged greetings on birthdays and holidays. There was no expectation attached to it. In early 2020, something shifted. Maybe it was maturity, maybe it was loneliness, or maybe it was just time. I decided to be honest about my intentions. I told her I liked her and wanted to get to know her properly. She wasn't hesitant. That alone felt like a small miracle. We started talking more consistently. The conversations were light, sometimes deep, sometimes playful. There was no pressure to define things immediately, and that made it easy. It felt natural, like something that had been waiting quietly for the right moment. But distance has a way of exposing cracks early. We lived in different towns, and physical meetings were rare, limited to holidays. Because of that, much of our connection lived through phone calls, messages, and imagination. And imagination can be both beautiful and dangerous. By late 2020, Naledi was still a student and planned to visit me during the festive season. I wanted that visit badly, felt like a milestone, a chance to turn something abstract into something real. But life didn't cooperate. Work commitments made it impossible for me to travel earlier that year, and stress crept in from both sides. We didn't know each other well enough to handle conflict with grace. Small misunderstandings grew teeth. Complaints became arguments. Arguments turned into silence. By mid-2021, we stopped talking altogether. There was no formal ending, no closure, just absence. For almost a year, she existed only as a thought. I tried not to linger on. I dated no one seriously during that time. Not because I was waiting, but because something about the story felt unfinished. In February 2022, I reached out through one of her friends. It wasn't pride that stopped me earlier, it was fear of rejection. But I had grown tired of unanswered what-ifs. When we finally spoke again, it was calmer, more honest. We acknowledged our past mistakes without fully unpacking them. We agreed to try again, believing maturity alone would fix what understanding had not. For short stretches, things were good, very good. Then the pattern began to reveal itself. 2 weeks of warmth would be followed by silence. Messages would go unread. Replies would shrink to one-word answers. When I asked what was wrong, it would escalate into conflict. When I stayed quiet, the silence would stretch into weeks, sometimes months. Each time, I was the one who reached out. The one who tried to fix things. The one who believed love meant endurance. Despite everything, I admired Naledi deeply. She was hardworking, determined, and compassionate. She hustled for herself and carried ambition with quiet dignity. Those qualities hooked me early and made letting go incredibly difficult. I supported her where I could emotionally, morally, and sometimes financially, not because she demanded it, but because I wanted to. I never kept score. I never asked for anything in return. I understood she was young and still building her footing in the world. When she eventually visited me in December 2022, it felt like validation, like proof that this wasn't imaginary. Messages from her friends, surprised that she had finally committed, reassured me that I was on T alone in taking this seriously. Even comments, questioning cultural or tribal differences, didn't shake me. I believed sincerity mattered more than opinion. But sincerity, I learned, doesn't automatically translate to emotional availability. As 2023 unfolded, the cycles repeated. Whenever she faced stress, financial struggles, work delays, personal pressure, silence became her shield. When I tried to address it, the conversation would shift away from the issue itself and focus on how I raised it. At one point, I found myself communicating through her friends because reaching her directly only made things worse. I even resorted to indirect social media posts out of frustrations, something I'm not proud of, but honest enough to admit. What confused me most was that during periods when we weren't speaking, she remained close to my family. She built relationships with my siblings, made video calls, and laughed with them while I carried the weight of unanswered messages alone. I never told my family when things were falling apart. I wanted to protect her image, and maybe I wanted to protect the illusion that things were fine. In early 2024, things reached a breaking point. She was struggling with rent and delays at work. I had my own pressing responsibilities and didn't promise what I couldn't immediately give, though I fully intended to help. Silence followed. On the eve of my birthday, I noticed my messages unread while she joked publicly with a man she had once mentioned asked her out. When I finally confronted her, she accused me of never helping her at all. That moment hurt more than the insults that followed, because I knew how many times I had shown up. I didn't respond after that, not because I stopped caring, but because I finally understood that love without mutual effort slowly becomes self-abandonment. The months that followed were quiet. Pain didn't vanish overnight. Feelings don't work like that. But they softened. And in that softness, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I stopped questioning my worth. I stopped replaying conversations. I stopped trying to prove how much I cared. Today, I look back without bitterness. I'm grateful for what the experience taught me about patience, boundaries, and the kind of love that doesn't require begging to be seen. Some people come into our lives to stay. Others come to teach us who we are when we love deeply. This story didn't end with two people together, but it ended with clarity, growth, and self-respect.